Well, this one's going to be a doozy. Okay, so as we all know, Donald Trump raped E. Jean Carroll. He did. He legally did. It was a legal verdict that he raped E. Jean Carroll. Yes, he did it digitally. He did it with his fingers, which is still rape, but in the colloquial sense, that was ruled by the law in New York that yes, we are all legally allowed to say that Donald Trump raped E. Jean Carroll. Okay. However, he doesn't like he doesn't like that that news story is out there. He doesn't like that people can say what I just said. And so it seems like he's a little bit mad at E. Jean Carroll for doing this. How dare she? How dare she sue him and win in the court of law? And so it seems like he has now decided to politically persecute and target E. Jean Carroll, the person that he raped. The president of the United States is suing a person that he raped. This is like, dear God. I mean, I'm not saying that there haven't been other rapist presidents. I am absolutely certain there have been. But as far as I know, none of them sued their rape victims or used their power to try to silence their rape victims. So anyway, this video will probably be demonetized to all hell, by the way. So I'm not gonna do the grape stuff. I'm just gonna say the naughty words that YouTube thinks are bad in the algorithm. So let's go ahead and go on. Let's watch this video and see what's going on with this horrible situation that our country finds itself in.
Department opened a criminal investigation into E. Jean Carroll, the former magazine columnist who accused President Trump of sexual assault. The department is examining whether she committed perjury regarding outside funding for her legal fight. Separate juries awarded Carroll more than $88 million. They found the president liable for sexually abusing her in a New York department store in the mid-1990s and defaming her in 2019 when he repeatedly...
So they're charging her with perjury for what? For how she funded her trial? Is that what they're saying? Or her defense? Or no, her her whatever. I guess she was the plaintiff or whatever, or the bringer of the lawsuit.
Denied the assault. The president is pursuing appeals in both cases. With us now, CNN political commentator Alyssa Farah Griffin. She was the communications director for the Trump White House. E. Jean Carroll won these cases against the president. The jury found him liable for sexual abuse. Now she is being investigated herself. What message does that send?
Well, first and foremost, from a PR perspective, because that's my background, I will never understand why this administration wants to put some of the worst associations of the president back in the headlines. Most of us have kind of forgotten about the E. Jean Carroll suit, the allegations, what he was ultimately found liable for, and now it puts it front and center. It's very similar to the January 6 cases. DOJ wants to keep rehashing them, but then Republicans also say, oh, Democrats.
Well, because I don't think he's worried about that sort of stuff. I don't think that he thinks that he will be truly punished for any of these terrible things that he's done. He's already shown that he hasn't been. The E. Jean Carroll thing already went through the news. And guess what? America elected him for president a second time. And also January 6th happened. And guess what? America elected him for president a second time. So at this point, he doesn't think that any of these things are in any way going to hurt him. Sure, it might hurt a little bit with some independence. But I don't know. He cares. I think he feels, probably rightfully so, that the small amount of he would rather punish his political enemies than face a small amount of scrutiny from the news. In fact, I think the more bad news stories that come up in the media at the same time, it's the fire hose strategy. The more that he can just dismiss all of them intrinsically or whatever, he never has to focus on any one. So you could even think of this right here that he's doing, suing his rape victim as a distraction for Iran or something, or as a distraction from the Epstein files. I think that probably, to some extent, I just don't think he actually feels like there will be any real punishment for doing this. And he's probably right, to be honest.
keep talking about January 6th. No, this president keeps talking about the election lies January 6th. So from purely a standpoint of wanting to focus on his domestic agenda and move forward, this makes zero sense.
Also, he's trying to rewrite history. That's a part of it too. History is written by the victors. It is written by the people who win the narrative, right? If Donald Trump frees all of the cop beaters and pedophiles from the January 6th insurrection, and then he creates this fund now, this $1.6 trillion fund to give money out to them or whatever. If this is allowed to happen and is not instantly rectified by, say, the Democrats in some meaningful way, then guess what? In the future, people are just going to think, oh, I guess they were politically persecuted. That's how it's going to happen. And in the same way, if he can rewrite this story in some way as oh, E. Jean Carroll, she lied or she perjured herself or something along those lines in order to change the narrative, then that will also be how that's a way for him to rewrite the history and rewrite the story so that the average tuned out brain dead American will just think, oh, I guess it was all just a mistake or something, just so that they don't have to think about it. I think that's probably another thing that he's trying to do with this.
That was so interesting because that was my follow-up question here, which is what do they get out of putting this out there months before?
What I just said is what they get
for a midterm.
Absolutely nothing. It's not a headline.
It's not going to hurt the midterms whatsoever. Nobody is going to give a shit about this during the midterms. There are so many more important things that people are going to consider. I mean, I'm sure that liberals aren't going to like this, but they're not. And maybe I guess it could galvanize some of them to get off the couch and come vote in the midterms, maybe. But I think a lot of liberals are already pretty pissed off and are going to go vote anyway. So I don't know if this is really going to impact that particularly this much.
Line that they want, and we've seen a number of these cases go forward, James Comey and others, where they overreached. DOJ was not able to get the outcome that they wanted, and I suspect this will be a similar case. I'm not from a legal perspective, but based on what we know, should be the last thing Donald Trump wants to talk about in the twilight of his presidency. He should be focusing on the economy, gas prices, the war in Iran, not relitigating this.
Listen, you know people either who worked for the White House or who were connected with them who then split. And I'm just wondering how much fear there is out there among people who do have a rift with the administration about being investigated.
I don't know if I'd frame it as fear, but sort of an acceptance that folks are going to be investigated. I think of Chris Krebs, of Miles Taylor, other critics of the president who are already going through those legal proceedings now. And I think folks...
Hassan Piker. Just kidding. He's not actually being investigated.
To lawyer up and be ready, because this is a president who was very clear that he was going to be doing a bit of a revenge tour. I would just hope that advisors around the president, I know this is something Susie Wiles pushed, this is not what you won on. You may have talked about it on the campaign trail, but it's not why people entrusted you with the American presidency. Focus on actually delivering for the American people.
Yeah, but he's not if he's going to go again, if he's going to try to hold on to power, it's not going to be based on like a vote, right? It's going to be based on how many of his loyalists he can rise up to try to maintain his power. And these sorts of things work, I think, are incredibly they work incredibly well, I think, on his base. His base loves when he targets his political enemies, because their entire ideology is centered around grievance and is centered around owning the libs or whatever. That is quite literally their entire ideology. It's Donald Trump is the best and we hate the liberals. They don't have any actual beliefs or policies that they want. So when he does things like punishing E. Jean Carroll here, I think a lot of them will see it as a good thing. And also Donald Trump doesn't care about the political project of MAGA, to be honest. I think he cares much more about his own personal grievances too. So there's that as well. I'll be right back.
People.
Joining us right now is CNN senior legal analyst, former federal prosecutor, Ellie Honig. Thanks for coming in, Ellie. I really appreciate it. So as John was just saying, this is now an investigation into E. Jean Carroll. questions about perjury and gets to the 2022 deposition that Carroll gave. What does the Justice Department need to show or prove, and how serious of a case is this again?
So perjury cases are serious. They're punishable by maximum 5 years in prison, but they're much harder for prosecutors to prove than I think people might realize. So what prosecutors will have to show here to have an indictment against E. Jean Carroll is that A, she gave false testimony about whether she knew where this funding was coming from. B, that the way she was asked the question was unambiguous, that there's no wiggle room, there's no confusion about what the question was or what the answer was. C, that she knew it was false at that time in 2022 at the deposition. And then D, the prosecutors will have to show what we call materiality, meaning was the thing she allegedly lied about relevant to some substantial issue in the case. It's not enough if it was just some detail or some throwaway. So those are the things prosecutors have to show. And of course, Kate, beyond a reasonable
I don't think it's going to succeed at all. Whether it was true or not, that last thing that he just said, that it needs to be relevant to the case, that's not relevant. How she funded her lawyer fees, if that's what it was for, that is completely irrelevant to the case.
Doubt when it gets to a jury, if and when it gets to
the
a jury.
materiality, I think is one of the questions that people will have. Is this isn't it's not, and I don't want to say quibble like it's not serious, but it's not a question about her telling the truth regarding a key element of what she has accused the president of. No, this is about just funding for her legal fees. Why does that matter?
Right. It has nothing to do with the alleged sexual assault inside the department store. But I think the argument prosecutors will make on materiality is the defense argument, Donald Trump's defense at that civil case, was in part that E. Jean Carroll had fabricated this story about what happened in the department store to take him down politically. And the argument would be, if she was indeed being funded by Democratic mega donors, that would be relevant to her motive. So that'll be the argument. I actually do think if they can prove she knowingly lied, I do think they will be able to satisfy materiality. The bar, by the way, for materiality is very low. You just have to show that it was relevant to some fact in the case.
But and another aspect of this is
I don't understand how you fund your lawsuit, how that makes any difference in terms of materiality. I think that that's a stupid argument that he made. Maybe that's how the system works, but I don't think that that's a good argument at all. You could make an argument that like the ideology of yourself, then if you self-fund it, right, like your ideology, that if you're going by like the motivations of people who funded the lawsuit, then you could make that argument for like anything, right? Like you could make an argument that your motivation as an individual, if you self-funded, is wrong. You could make you could find, like, if you crowdfunded it, you could find some person who donated to you who politically doesn't like Donald Trump, and so therefore it like, oh, this shouldn't be counted, or like this, like she targeted, they were trying to target me politically because this one person donated. I just don't think that really should be a standard in law. I don't think that your funding mechanism should in any way be be indicative of the lawsuit. And also my solution to all of that, by the way, would be that these things, like, I think that they should be like funded publicly. Honestly, I don't like that lawsuits and stuff have to be completely self-funded. I feel like they should be like, I feel like it's unfair that like the amount of money you have dictates how much, like, how good of a defense you're able to put up or whatever. Like or like you could do like I don't know. I just don't think that's a good system anyway, but that's kind of beside the point, I guess.
Just if you add into in the context of this pattern of retribution that we have seen from the Justice Department, from President Trump, especially of recent, how does that add into this?
So this is very relevant legally, and this could overcome the entire case. If there comes a day where E. Jean Carroll gets charged, she will have a very strong vindictive prosecution defense. The textbook definition of vindictive prosecution is somebody asserts their rights, let's say by a lawsuit, and wins, and then gets punished with a prosecution in return. And so she will have a very strong case. And this, of course, is not happening in a vacuum, Kate. We've seen politically
yeah, like you could see all the people that they've targeted already here on the screen. E. Jean Carroll, James Comey, John Bolton, which fuck him, but you know, if he's being politically targeted, that still shouldn't happen. Letitia James, Jerome Powell, John Brennan. I don't know who John Brennan is, and then Senator Adam Schiff. But yeah, they've been doing this a lot, and they fail. They usually end up failing. Like, it usually ends up getting tossed. I think this one will get tossed. Like he's saying, the political prosecution angle will definitely, I think, be an easy thing to prove.
She will have a very strong case. And this, of course, is not happening in a vacuum, Kate. We've seen politically targeted prosecutions that have failed against Letitia James, against Jim Comey, against Mark Kelly, against Alyssa Slotkin, an investigation of Jerome Powell on down the line. So she'll have a powerful defense to be made, but she can't do it now. She can only do it if and when there comes a day where she gets indicted.
Joining me now is someone who...
Okay. I'm going to go ahead and move on. That's that, people. It's horrific. Probably the most horrific political persecution that I've ever seen. Targeting like a person that you literally raped, like with a lawfare campaign, is insane. I never thought that I would have to see the day where the president of the United States is literally trying to do a trying to do lawfare against a person that they raped. That's insane. But okay, let's go ahead and move on.